Morning, everybody. Live from San Francisco. It is, once again, what is it? It's the watch party for day 3 of the Preliminary Regatta Barcelona. I'm Tom Eamon, your host here alone. Julia's upstairs in the Commodore's suite here at the Beach Street Yacht Club watching. No doubt she's awake. I haven't heard her padding about yet, but welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. I see Ted Ryman is on in Cape Town in South Africa, Bob Walker in North Texas, Philip Laughing, full pot of coffee. Today I've got my iced coffee, Phil, and that's really a lifesaver. As well, we started just a minute early here. We're waiting for ESPN to come live at the top of the hour in about 50 seconds from now. And again, welcome to all of you. As we are here in Studio B, no Julia. We did our show yesterday afternoon, Friday afternoon, with the esteemed Luca Devoti. It was a lot of fun. It was a terrific event, and we really appreciated having him on. If you didn't see that, hi, Mark Holland. And if you didn't see that, you should go back and have a look at that show. Luca was his usual, well, I call him the sailing savant. He was terrific. Rick Banner, a wakey. Megs and Bakey. There's Chris Otorowski, who's in Barcelona, esteemed New York Yacht Club member, past Commodore of the Seattle Yacht Club, past Commodore of the Cruising Club of America. See, it's rolling off my tongue, even though it's, a few minutes after 5 a.m. here in San Francisco. Let's get this one going. If you want to join by Zoom, I don't see anybody on yet, but Graham Sweeney came on yesterday and a couple others, and it was really cool to have a co-host, in effect. If you want to come on via Zoom, there's the code. It's the same, my private meeting code. It's the same number, 267-220-6570. 267-220-6570. 1851 is the passcode, and you can join us on the Zoom call on that. And let's go check in and see if we have ESPN. I got on the main screen here. Where's my remote? I need my TV remote. And see if we can get the ESPN Live going. I just, while we're doing that, I want to, I should go do one more slide. Wind Farm, hello, John Spangos. I just want to thank Rich Fishbeck, who yesterday provided after the show, a post-show breakfast. He sent a bagel and egg, cheese, bacon sandwich, speaking of bakey, Rick Banner. It was really nice to have that, and I appreciate it very much. And thanks to Rich Fishbeck for sending that. I was out on the front stoop here at the BSYC. Let's go see what's going on here. Again, there's the Zoom ID. And let's see what's going on. It is in action. Let's see if we can get ESPN Plus on the air here. I have Sports Center on ESPN. That's not really what I want. ESPN Plus. They're not very refined, at least on my cable system. I'm watching this on my cable system, which is Comcast. Well, Jonathan Frank's awake in Corpus Christi. And I've gone through this once. Let's do it again. But for some reason, ESPN Plus, there it is, live. The 37th America's Cup prelims in Spain. There's an interview live. That's a good sign. Get it full screen on the tube. A little bit of audio. There's Steve MacGyver, the Kiwi radio host, who's the host of the broadcast. And we'll see. The schedule is not straight. I've got it, Alex Hayworth. I've got it here on the big screen. It has come live, at least here in the U.S. Nothing on YouTube yet, Alex Hayworth. And Alex is in the U.K., I believe. Ken Saban got my own live regatta today at 10. They're on Lake Erie. Ken's in Toledo, Ohio, the southwest corner of Lake Erie. Pedro Foiling Sailor up and at 'em in Sydney, where it's 20. Well, it's still up and at 'em at 22:03, 10 at night in Sydney. Midnight in Auckland. I'm an apology for Zoom. I'll be watching lying down. Pedro Foiling Sailor. There's the scorecard. And you've got the Kiwis on 100%. But as I reported on the show yesterday, our Friday afternoon regular show, there is reports coming out that the challengers have decided not to race the Kiwis in earnest. And as you know, those of you who've been watching know that there have been kind of 3 walkovers. The Kiwis in the first race, the Italians seemed to go, and then their software quit. And their boat fell off, and that was the end of that race. And then the second race, the Brits fell off their foils before the start, and that wasn't much of a race because then they were far behind and never amounted to anything. And then in the third race, the French didn't even show up. So we'll see what happens today as they're doing the preliminaries, showing the docking out of the teams this morning. Day 3, there's Sir Ben. I still think Ben ought to get off the boat. I know not all of you agree, but I do think Sir Ben ought to get off the boat. I don't see anybody on Zoom yet. If you do want to join, there is the code. I'll go back to the slides for a minute here and just, again, thanking Rich Fishback. And he sent 2 of these sandwiches in a bag, one of which I took up to Julia after the show, and she was most appreciative. And again, that show yesterday with Luca Devoti was one of our more interesting shows. I think the guy is so bright, so well connected. We talked about the Olympics. We talked about the America's Cup, of course, in his view on all the boats and the teams and the sailors and some of the ridiculousness of what we're watching. But he also then talked a little bit about American world sailing politics. We celebrated together the non-sailing CEO who is leaving as of the 30th of August. That was announced yesterday. He's leaving U.S. sailing on the 30th of August. There's the standings. The Kiwis ahead 3-0. Luna Rossa on 2 wins. American Magic on 2 wins. Lingy on 1 win. That's the Swiss team, of course. And then the Brits and the French on 0 wins. And what we're supposed to see today is this last race from yesterday has been pushed down. For some reason, those 2 races got swapped. You can see the check mark in the first, was supposed to be the first race today. That check mark over the Kiwis because the French didn't show up. And today it's the Swiss and the Brits. And I don't know the order. We'll go back to the live in a moment. But the Swiss are supposed to race the Brits at some point. You can't have the Brits racing 2 in a row, which is they're scheduled to race the Italians in race 10. So this becomes today's first race, and I picked the Swiss over the Brits. I picked the Italians over the Brits whenever that race happens. I picked the Americans over the French, and I picked the Kiwis over the Swiss. Those are the 4 scheduled races today, and what is supposed to be fairly light air, 9 at 1400, you can see there, southerly again, 9 knots, gusting 11. So kind of somewhere between or about the same maybe as the first day, a touch more than yesterday perhaps, which was 7 gusting 9, 8 gusting 10 maybe. And it's plenty warm. It's 88 Fahrenheit, and it's, what's that in Celsius? That's, pushing 8? 37, 38 Celsius. So that's the lay of the land as we begin day 3. Let's go back and see what's going on as we're inside of 3 minutes now to the start of this race between the Swiss and the Brits, right? And there's the Swiss. Oh, yeah, Swiss and the Brits. So that's how they've scheduled this. We'll go in closer, go on camera 2 in a little bit closer to what we call the master control room. You can see a little bit better over my shoulder, but I don't want to play this because I don't want to get a copyright strike against this. I'll keep the audio in the background as I did yesterday. It's BYOT, bring your own television. I hope you're all seeing it on ESPN Plus or whatever YouTube service or otherwise you're watching it on. Michael Frank, hello, Michael. I've got ESPN. That's what I'm watching it on here, Rick Banner. I hope you all are seeing it. James Appel, the live feed via the UK still isn't streaming. Rob Fry working on YouTube in Auckland. Good. Good morning, everyone, from Chris Exley, Clayton Embley. Good morning, fellow Fozy. Yeah, live seems to be live. It wouldn't be the AC without some skullduggery, Yar Vahe saying. And let's go look and see the setup here as the Swiss are deep in the box. The Brits now crossing across the line. I picked the Swiss to win this. I think the Brits are just a tick slower than the other top teams anyway, upwind. And here will be the final approach. We'll see how deep the Brits go, if they're going to follow back or lead back. Looks like they're going to tack to leeward of the Swiss. No, the Swiss are going to do another dipsy doodle, and the Brits are going to shadow them. They're way out in the lower right-hand corner. Less than a minute now. Now they're swinging around. Boy, they're deep in the box. I don't think that's a boundary line. I think that's just more for television showing the start box. Looks like plenty of breeze. They're going quite quickly. 30 knots. Here comes the start in less than 30 seconds now. The Brits to leeward of Alinghi. Are they going to try to squeeze them off? I don't think they can. They're both going to hit the line flying, it looks like. The Brits are heading to leeward. And we'll see who is a click faster, who maybe is a click higher. Again, too much audio off the boats. Let's hear the commentators. Nice starts by both teams. Beautiful starts. And who is quicker? That's the Swiss looking back from the Brit boat. Looks like the Swiss are low and fast, trying to get across Ineos. This is the first of 6 legs. The GPS showing the Swiss in the lead, but they're going to probably get peeled off here. They will have to tack when they get over to the boundary, both boats, obviously. And the Swiss, if indeed the course is the same, in terms of wind distribution, the upwind right and these southerlies, it is a southerly again today, you can see from the shoreline, the upwind right has been a little breezier, and the team that gets over there first has generally come out ahead. Jonathan Frank would love to join you on Zoom, but have the honor to participate in the commissioning of the USS Kingsville LCS 36 this morning. Is that a Coast Guard boat? Jonathan, isn't your son a coastie? Alex Hayworth, who's a bit of an expert on the Brit team and in the America's Cup in general, he's on to keep us being informed. There's Graham Sweeney. I hope you come on, Graham. I've got the Zoom up. This is close. A little luff here from the Alinghi team to leeward, forcing the Brits off in a slow tack. A bit unexpected, perhaps, as the Swiss now extend to the upwind right. Hello, Jeff Ogle. Hello, Jay Frederick Bland. Getting some brekkie before a tune-up at the gym. He is 60-something, and he is one of the strongest 60-year-olds I know. That is Boomer Bland. Brits back on port tack now, trying to get over there to the upwind right with the Swiss. Great starts, yeah, Graham Sweeney. Yeah, SUI ahead. I mean, it says 77 meters, but these boats, I don't think the GPS is quite as accurate as we're used to seeing in Sail GP, even. As now the Swiss have won the right. I think they wanted the right. I think they started to the right. And let's see what the relative speeds are. GPS showing Swiss leading in the GBR team, Sir Ben and Co., 70 meters, which is nothing at these speeds. 70 meters trailing. That was a medical nurse driving on port pod for the Swiss, luffing off a 4-time gold medalist. And a silver medalist, the most decorated Olympian in our sport, Sir Ben Ainslie. Now the Brits have crossed behind. Yeah, they're 2% short of pace in a straight line, Alex Hayworth is saying about his Brit team. He's got some real insight and insider info on the Brit team traditionally, normally. He has all along for the build-up, the last 3.5 years. Here's a replay of the cross. Bit of a dip. Ben Ainslie on the starboard side, you could hear Shirley Robertson saying. And here they come into the top gate. The Brits on the upwind right of Alinghi, at the top of your screen. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 3. This could be the best match of the day, especially if you believe that the teams are not necessarily trying to race hard against the Kiwis. Have the Brits taken the lead here? Looks like they have. The upwind right seems to have paid off again. Brits tacking ahead and will pass through the gate first. Alinghi, will they chase them down on the downwind left side of the track? The delta 4 seconds.
Get settled. Hold it. Let's get it settled.
Yeah, I just wish they would do this. Listen to the boats and then pot that off. Pot's an old audio engineer term when you had potentiometer. Well, a fader is the slider on an audio board. A pot is the knob on an audio board. They both do the same thing, different physical devices. Now let's see if the Brits are as quick downwind as they're supposed to be on leg 2 of 6 here. Brits leading, ahead and slightly to leeward. Closest race so far, agree, Clark Chafin. And the Alinghi Red Bull Racing team jiving over 100 meters behind. As both boats now heading back to the downwind left. Ineos covering, staying between Alinghi and the gate. That's Peter Lester, the Kiwi, America's Cup vet, and many times now he's been covering the Cup on TV for various outlets. He's on the water. Shirley's in the booth, along with the famously good sailor and ETNZ member. You got a member of a team in the broadcast booth. The Australian catamaran, multiple world champion and Olympic medalist. You can hear him there.
Before the maneuver, they're just painting a really beautiful picture of what he was seeing out there for the opposite side of the yacht. So that choreography just super important.
Brits look quick downwind, at least maintaining pace.
We want the right upwind, don't we? So potentially we let them go and go to the left lane on. Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, looking at some really nice numbers here, the VMG of the yachts, that's basically the velocity made good to the bottom mark. So they're basically heading directly to those marks.
A decent race, Yarvahe says. Yeah, closest race so far.
But VMG to the bottom, actually about 35.
Saraphagus. I don't think that's the right spelling, Alex. Didn't hunt enough. J. Frederick Bland, so it looks like they're barely out of the breakwater shore. Let's get them out on a 24-mile course in an ocean environment, as the Brits have led through gate 2 at the end of the first sausage by about 125 meters, touch more.
The British need to keep sailing the boat accurately, which they are.
Glenn Ashby, terrific commentator, fabulous sailor. Oh, what is this? This is a replay? I thought they already went through that gate. Or were they replaying the top gate? Now they're going through the gate. I guess this is live. That's what happens when I look away from the show. And the delta now is 9 seconds. It was 4 seconds at the top gate first time. A competitive bend is good for the AC. Yes, Ed Vitrano, I agree. He promised, I was reading their press coverage, their PR from the team this morning. He promised a much more competitive RD2.
Feels like a better day today, Rob.
Now they're going to the coach boat, Rob Wilson.
It's a pretty even start. The boys did a nice first.
And I may have picked the wrong team. This may be my first error here. We'll see how Lingy's upwind speed is now. They get in clear air ahead into wind, or behind into windward, I should say, of the Brits. We'll see if they get more pressure. They're slightly to the right of Ineos's track. You can see that's a good camera shot. And see if they are a click faster or a click higher than the Brits. Uphill. Both teams, Graham Sweeney's saying, only one error away from a disaster. True that.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Ineos looked really quick on that downward leg. Now they're coming directly at us on this left-hand side. Ineos is just
Peter Lester again on the water.
Between Lingy and that lateral separation initially.
Lingy a click higher to my eye there on that, but they're a click slower.
A bit more pressure in that windward position. So coming across on starboard, it's been a pretty even match.
Pretty even match. Indeed. Well, good one, finally, on day 3.
Right-hand side of the track looks really good today, more so than ever.
Shirley likes the right-hand side of the track. There's American Magic in the background getting ready to race. There goes Lingy off to the upwind right now, attacking first. I guess they were falling into the bad air at some point. They would have been falling into the bad air of Ineos. Nice camera work, guys. Beautiful vision, as the TV pros call it. Hello, Phil Burgess. If they're creating so much apparent wind directly on the bow, why can't they sail in any direction? Well, they really can, but there is a vortex. There is a tornado of bad air coming off the trailing edge, and how that dissipates in the back, it's not clear. And Clark agreeing and I agree, Clark, it'd be nice to have a reliable visualization of the wind shadow on the leading boat, both upwind and down, because there's a bit of a wind shadow in the boat ahead, downwind too. We're not used to that. Ineos is a donkey when it maneuvers. Yeah, Graham Clark, but they're still in the lead. They seem to have found a little more pace, at least vis-a-vis the Swiss.
See how well the British are sailing their boat trim-wise there. Foil trimmer's doing a really nice
Glenn Ashby observing that the Brits' ride height, they're sailing the boat better today.
Just listening to the comms from Supinase, there's a real confidence in the voice today. Like
more confidence in the Ben Ainsley voice is what Steve MacGyver is saying. Sorry, I'm not listening that closely to the onboard audio. Hello, Jay Hanfield. Good morning from the AC Museum on Lower Thames Street in Newport, Rhode Island. Are they live streaming it there, Jay? And the Brits, if anything, have extended. This is going to be, what, on the order of probably 11, 12, maybe 13 seconds as the Brits see if they round the upwind left end of the gate or whether they tack. I think I would have tacked. I know the extra maneuver, especially with their slowness through the maneuvers, but that upwind right or downwind left seems to have more pressure. So that's where the Swiss are headed. Delta is going to be a touch more than 15 seconds, 19 seconds. So a nice gain to the Brits. Well, a lot of you on here. Nice to have you with us this Saturday morning in San Francisco, 0523. Yeah, Mark Husted, it's always better in the top right-hand corner of the course when the breeze is coming from the southish, just past the W Hotel. Yeah, that's what we've been hearing and seeing, and in fact, I remember that from the 92 Olympics. When we raced in these waters, you can see the Olympic Harbor there in the back where the two tall towers are. Port Bell now to the left, which is the America's Cup base. Brits coming over to cover them, stay between the Swiss, that is, and the bottom gate as they're on leg 4, just a touch more than halfway through. Look at the cyclors, constant cycling to generate hydraulic pressure. Can't see them, can't see their faces, can't see their heads. You can see their butts. Those of you who are into that, I guess, find this exciting. Most of the rest of the sailing world not finding it too exciting. In fact, I was on, there's Phil laughing, saying hi to everybody up in Newport. Where are you, Phil? Are you in Annapolis? Where are you? Remind us. I've forgotten what your home base is. Andrew Barkworth. I know sponsors are much needed in such an expensive event, but in Sail GP, we easily know what boat is from what country, which country. Half these boats, very little country recognition. Good point. Good point. There's my big screen view here. But I was on Reddit. Those of you who are Redditors, wow, big increase in lead to the Brits by doing one less tack and jibe, I guess.
Ian Murray and Mel Roberts there. Lingy Rebel Racing really just trailing probably a little too much.
Brits are quick downwind. I think that is fair to say. But I was on Reddit last night, and I haven't been on early this morning, but yesterday afternoon and evening, and the Redditors, they call themselves, there's an AC37 subreddit, and there's an America's Cup subreddit, and the comments are just almost universally awful about this event. Yeah, this is 400-plus meter lead now, Rick Bannerow. Oh, that's right. Phil Laffins in Tampa, Florida, Davis Island. In Tampa, Davis Island Yacht Club. Terrific club. Well, what was an interesting match is turning into a walkover for the Brits, so that a lot of you who are Brit fans will be happy. I'm happy, notwithstanding I still think Ben ought to get off the boat and run the campaign, and most of you don't agree with that and point out that he's fully ensconced in ego and reputation and experience and a lot of other things. Probably preclude him from leaving the boat. As Alinghi's race course management not as good as the Brits, as they're ending up on the upwind left side of the track as they begin leg 5. The Brits way ahead on the upwind right. Yeah, for sure race over except for a failure. I think you're right. There's the Brits covering as the Swiss get to the boundary. What a job to sit there on a racing yacht, head down, cycling your proverbial butts off. Bill Robertson is on the Alinghi coach boat. He and the family rented an apartment in BCM over the summer whilst this is on, and he was juggling Sail GP. And what was your comment, Mark Husted? He knows Phil well. He was juggling Sail GP and coaching Alinghi, no time off. So he's on the Alinghi coach boat. GBR boat is faster with Ainsley in it. Why take him out of the boat? J. Frederick Bland agreeing with most of you who thinks he should not be off the boat. Yeah, it's boring to watch. Steve Adkins, past Commodore of the Madison Beach Club in Madison, Connecticut. Good morning to you, sir. 8:30 on the East Coast, 5:30 in the morning here in San Francisco. Welcome to day 3. 280-meter lead. The Brits ahead of the Swiss.
And that's just
Brits have another race after this.
Clingy Rebel Racing and making sure they're going
Not directly. I'm sure they're going to put them down later in the day.
Got a lovely shot of the
Race 3 or
winning three
4.
of them.
those little woolly indicators indicating the airflow actually going around the sails themselves. So really key to be able to see, particularly in takeoff.
Good race course management by the Brits.
Flow attached back again on the sail.
Good downwind speed, and they've certainly been okay upwind too.
We have a grandstand view watching this, and folks,
Grandstand view indeed. There's a bunch of people on the beach who could give a flying you-know-what about what's going out on the water. And the foreshortening of the telephoto lens makes it look a lot closer than it really is. Same happened in Valencia. Yeah, the ID, the national flags are pretty bloody small, aren't they? Hard to tell with black sails and black boats and big sponsor branding for Red Bull and Ineos. Nice cover work from Ben. Yes, Graham Sweeney. They good course management, good covering. Michael Frank, I couldn't agree more how dumb the cyclers look. Hello, Larry Leonard. Nice to have Larry on. It's been a long time, not much of a match race. Even at the start, there was very little interaction. Has there been a pass yet? There was on day 1, a couple passes, but then nothing since, including in this race. No passes yet, Larry, including in this race. The Brits have led off. They were led off the starting line ahead until Lured. The Swiss won the right. They wanted the right, it looked like, up on the hip of the Brits, but then the right side of the course has not been as favorable today as it has been on the 2 previous days as the Brits come to gate 5, the top of the 5th leg. 1 leg to go to the finish. What's this race taking, all of 20 minutes? And the Brits, short of some disaster, are going to win their first race. They're on 0 wins. 1 point per win, 1 single round robin, and the 2 top teams in points at the end of the round robin, racing each of the other 5 teams once. The 2 boats on tomorrow, Sunday, will go to a single race winner-take-all final. The delta 25 seconds, so the Brits have increased on every leg. 4 seconds at gate 1, then 9 seconds, then 19 seconds, then 25 seconds. And good point, D. Smith, that the boats have different jibs sizes. Yeah, 20 minutes, J. Frederick Bland is saying the cyclers are exhausted. I've seen longer Optimus dinghy races. Well, yeah, routinely.
Really, I think, completely dominated this one. The crucial time for me was that lead change on leg 1. But equally... Yeah,
there was, Larry Leonard, there was a lead change. At 1 cross, the Swiss crossed ahead. Ineos went behind and then came out on top at the top gate. 500-plus meter lead now. What do you think about the D. Smith? Hello, nice to see D on here. D, what you're thinking about the different jib sizes here? By the way, we've got Zoom. If anybody wants to come on, and I'm sending this feed, our feed, through on Zoom. If you want to join us on the Zoom, I don't see anybody on there, but we do have that up. Graham Sweeney went on Zoom yesterday. It was a co-commentator. There's James Appel saying hi to D. Larry Leonard, a blast from the past, a longtime friend, sailmaker, a superb sailor. We did the 87 Cup together with America 2. Brits extending downwind, again confirming what the scuttlebutt has been, that the insider info that the Brits are quick downhill in this medium breeze. 10, 11 knots. Bit of a yawn. Very difficult to pass a boat that's in the lead because of not being able to put a wind shadow on anybody, really, at these speeds, at these apparent wind angles. And the other problem, of course, is that the lead boat can do their course management, can plan their track, and the other boats, the trailing boat, has got to just tack or jibe away to try to find something different, as the Brits will get their first win in this preliminary regatta. We'll see what the delta is. Yeah, there was a pass on that first leg. 2 passes, technically, because Brits, if you buy that the Brits were ahead on the upwind leg at the start, first upwind leg, and then the Alinghi team passed them, and then the Brits passed them again. Let's see what the delta is. But clearly, the boat speed advantage in this race, 33 seconds at the finish. The delta, the Brits ahead of the Swiss. Okay? And what, a bigger jib on the Brits? Is that what you saw, D. Smith? Calcutta's at the pubs, that's all. There's no purse that I'm aware of which I'm aware. Keep Julia happy with proper grammar. 23:01 minutes. That was a 23-minute race. Oh, yeah. They used to be 4 hours back in the day in Newport. A couple hours in San Diego and Auckland. Been getting shorter and shorter and shorter. People's attention span arguably gets shorter and shorter.
The top gate, Shirley, really Ineos Britannia just shutting the door there on Alinghi Red Bull Racing.
There are the lead changes in replay.
The gate off them and really putting them on the back foot.
Again, if I go live to their coverage, I'm going to get a copyright strike, and I don't want to do that. It's nice just to be able to watch it here on the screens. BYOV, bring your own video. So at least the first leg, we've had one good leg. One good leg. Bloody hell. In all of this racing. Thanks for joining us here on day 2. It's day 3, rather. And we got one more day tomorrow. We'll do this again at 0500 tomorrow. For what it's worth. And here is Ben. Let's listen in a little bit.
It's actually about okay off the start line, but Alinghi did a nice job hanging in there and made it quite difficult for us when we tacked onto port. Pretty close, and we managed to get to the right-hand side of the top of that beat, which came good for us. But
yeah, and maybe the right-hand side is not good early. Maybe it's better just at the top end of that beat, as Ben was saying. Teams will know from their coaches and otherwise. Yeah, it's painful, Tom. It's painful, Larry, as Larry is saying to me. Yeah, it's not the good old-fashioned match racing. And arguably boats, slower, big, heavy displacement boats, or at least maybe not as heavy as the 12-pounders were, but as they were affectionately known. Clark Chapin thinks that the boat ahead is always faster downwind. Ted Ryman saying happy days for GBR. Well done, GBR. Gareth Evans. Yeah, hi, Gareth. Nice to see you on 1 point at last. Garvahe has settled his nerves that the Brits are got to win, but I wouldn't be too happy for a win against the team that I've got ranked as either 4th or 5th, only ahead of the French. More wins, smaller jib, faster, D. Smith is saying.
It's early days, isn't it? I mean, how happy are you with how it's all starting to come
Clark
together?
Chapin.
I think it's pretty great.
BYOV and Gareth Evans, where he's in the UK, and what time is it there in London? It's 13:37, almost 2 in the afternoon. BYOB, the sun is over the yardarm, so you can have a beer, a pint. Don Lunabos is waking up in Sonoma. Welcome to you, Don. 5:38 here. Rick Bano, the first leg was the Long John Silver race. One good leg. Mark Holland, have you heard whether ESPN Plus will be covering the women's and youth runs? I don't know, Mark. I don't know what other coverage is coming our way in the States. Sadly, the States is the only country where the racing is not live and free to air, or at least free to the internet. Most countries have got a YouTube feed or some other streaming feed that is free. And all the other America's Cup countries, the other 5 America's Cup countries, all have a free national domestic coverage feed. Not here in the States. We can only watch live on ESPN Plus, and then we can watch a day later on YouTube. They have it geo-blocked on YouTube, as those of you who have been looking for it on YouTube can attest. Who's talking now? There's Arnaud Sarafagas, the skipper of the Brit team. He's talking there in the background in a package that obviously will have been pre-recorded about Alinghi Red Bull Racing, who I had higher hopes for early in this series, and I've steadily moved their ranking down. I've got them ranked 4th or 5th now, with the Brits just ahead of the French. And maybe the Brits, maybe my original ranking of the Brits as 4th is proper, was proper. Tom Ogletree, hello from the Garden Center in Lowe's. In Lowe's where? SAV, Savannah? The Garden Center. You're watching it on your phone, presumably. Is SAV, is that Savannah, Tom? Savannah, the home of the 96 Olympic sailing event when the Olympics were in Atlanta. I was there on the jury, both for Barcelona in 92 and in Savannah 96, and it was light and fusterly in both venues, and a lot of thunderstorms in Savannah. Ben must have fitted his honeycomb vents. Ted Ryman. Okay, good one. Okay, well, I'm going to jump off that live stream for a second, go back to the slides. And we are on day 3, our watch party here on Sailing Illustrated, streaming our normal channels to YouTube and to our 2 Facebook channels on my personal page and the Sailing Illustrated page. Good Saturday morning to all of you. Saturday, the 24th of Agosto in Espanol. There are my teams and my rankings as of this morning, and I may have to revise them if this race looks pretty favorable for the Brits. If they can stay fit, clearly the French are the bottom team. Everybody has them as the last place team, and whether Ineos or the Alinghi team are 5th or 4th, I had them tied for 4th going into today, and that probably is still where I would have them now if I revise this graphic. After yesterday's performance by Spitfire Spithill at the start, and then pretty good speed up wind, you got to put Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli ahead of the Americans, New York Yacht Club's American Magic, but no one thinks the Kiwis are anything but top of the heap in first place, and that's how I have them ranked. You can argue with that, probably rightfully so, at least as between 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. I don't think most people argue with 1 and 6 going forward. We shall see. Let's switch back to see what's going on here on the preview for this next match, which is American Magic. We saw them there on the sidelines getting their main up. Well, they will have towed out probably without their main, I'm not sure. And they will be racing the French Orient Express Racing Team, who, as you all know, is a day late and $1 short with funding. And they do have a couple hella good skippers. Quentin Delapierre, who's been their Sail GP skipper, and Kevin Pepinay, 470 sailor, and more, who's from that famously good Pepinay family, Terry Pepinay and co. They are the co-helms on Orient Express, and of course you got Tom Slingsby and Goody. You got an Australian and a Brit steering for New York Yacht Club American Magic. And this should be a walkover for the Americans. Let's see.
October 12, 2024, as we try and find a
with their cockpit fairings, covers, partial covers there. You can see the gray partial covers that have been somewhat controversial. These, oops, they just switched away from it. Under 3 minutes now to the start between the French and the Americans. Race 10, day 3. And there is no prohibition. I checked overnight, J. Frederick Bland. I checked overnight with some of my rules expert friends. Hamish Ross is going to delve into it in detail, but as I asserted on yesterday afternoon Sailing Illustrated show on Friday, here comes the entry for the Americans at the port end. They get to enter 10 seconds earlier. That's to stop dial-ups. That's to stop any dangerous bow-to-bow situations in the pre-start. This has been going on for several cups now, which again removes some of the interest. French coming in with starboard advantage, but 10 seconds later. At least the French are in. Americans, boy, that tack wasn't very auspicious, falling off the foils. Got to reach down now and get back up on the foils. Kind of a crazy Ivan there from Tom Slingsby and co. I don't think there's any prohibition. I don't know how you would know if somebody's sandbagging Boomer Bland. And I don't know how you'd prohibit it, how you'd write a rule to prohibit it. The question is whether ETNZ has any business at all racing any of the challengers, which is what Michael Frank has to say. There's a replay of that crazy Ivan. What was that all about? You never want to win the practice race. Well, there is that superstition, J. Frederick Bland. Less than a minute now. The Americans still don't seem to be sailing at speed. The Americans sailing away from the line with 40 seconds to go here, trying to get up on the foils, both foils in the water. Something is wrong with the American boat. It must have gotten light because the French are also got both foils in the water. It must have gone light here, is all I can guess. The Americans have got to tack and head for the line. Uh-oh, there's some repair going on the back end of the boat there on the American boat. Here come the French, 30 knots. The Americans doing 9 knots, sailing away from the line, 5 seconds to go.
in the start box by American Magic, who have big problems, and away go Orient Express Racing.
God. Rudder tech problem, Mark Husted is saying, on the USA. So steering problem on the American boat as they are sailing off to the sideline. Looks like since that crazy Ivan, that tack and crash down, they have not done anything except kind of struggle along in the same starboard tack direction. Somebody passed the duct tape. Ah, bloody hell. A pox on all this. These boats are crutonic. I'm sorry. They are absolutely idiotic and crutonic. There, I said it. I've kept my powder dry. But Andy Rose down in Newport Beach and others of you who are traditionalists just think this is idiocy. And of course, part of the viewership problem, as a couple of you are pointing out, Maura Stevens, AC is not going to improve their viewership by geo-blocking the coverage. Yeah, I totally agree, Maura. The first few days have had lackluster racing, but I do like the knowledgeable commentary and video clips. Yeah. In fact, the best way to watch this, besides coming on here with us, with this community of super good sailors and fans, is to look on YouTube after this racing, go on YouTube, because within a couple hours, there are a lot of YouTube videos showing up from the teams and from other commentators like Matt Sheehan. Now, Matt, I'm assuming, has had his expenses paid. I was talking with Richard Gladwell, who's in Auckland, talking last night with Richard, and he's saying, well, most of the media there have been paid and accommodated by at least accommodated, maybe flights and accommodation to get to Barcelona. So what's the point of having media there who are none of whom or few of whom are independent? There's a replay now of this. Oh, they lost more than just the rudder control. There's the bucking Bronco. Get around here so you can see it a bit over my shoulder on the big screen. Another soccer pratfall. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Good morning to you, Mark Reed, who's presumably in Michigan, where he's closing in on 9 in the morning. At least a decent hour there. College football coming up in Michigan and beyond. Mark Holland, New York Yacht Club clearly has retired. Thank you for that. Against the weakest team in the fleet. Indeed. There's David Blackman. David Blackman down in Newport Beach. He's up early. David, a great sailor, but also was an umpire here in the America's Cup in 2013 up in San Francisco. I haven't seen him on the umpiring circuit of late, but I know he's done quite a bit of judging, umpiring, and racing. Newport Harbor Yacht Club member, I believe, and Blackman Jewelers in Newport Beach. They fix and have been fixing my Rolex watch, maintaining it for me. It's an old Rolex from 1984. It was new in 84. So what's that, 40 years old, that watch? Nice to see you on. David Blackman. Go Blue! John Spangos is a big fan of the University of Michigan. I'm not sure they're going to have as good a season this year, John, as they did last year, winning the national championship. Christy Erickson Pryor. Christy is another fabulous sailor. She has done an America's Cup with Dennis Conner in what, Christy, 1980 and 83? I can't remember. She's in Bristol, Rhode Island. They're at the Harrisoff. Yeah, a number of our fans, friends, and otherwise are at the Harrisoff Regatta up in Bristol, Rhode Island, and Narragansett Bay and the eastern shore. Lovely wooden boats go racing this weekend. David Blackman, good morning to you and welcome. The tech is too fragile, J. Frederick Bland saying. Dalton's disaster. Could not agree more. Yeah, John Spango saying the University of Michigan season is just probably this year just to beat Ohio State. And that is true. If you can beat Ohio State, Michigan's beaten them 3 times in a row now, and amazingly, they still have their coach. There is Davis PL in Corpus Christi, and he was urging me yesterday to talk about the Melgus 24 Worlds, which is going on across the bay here. I think today's the last day at San Francisco Yacht Club. Probably more interesting than this event, the Melgus 24 Worlds. And Christy Erickson Pryor, that was Trevor, so it was good, okay. Famous yachting couple. Christy, if you can get a comment out of Trevor, he's probably been following this disaster in Sicily with that super yacht Bayesian, the sinking and the loss of life. I wonder, you can put a comment here on the feed. You two, your expertise can tell us what happened to Bayesian, the sinking of that huge, what was that? That thing was what, 60 meters, 58 meters long? American Magic replay, pre-start. There's an interview with Slingers is busy, so they've got an interview there. Goody. And a lot of repair action on the back of that boat. Obviously, shore team on board. And it does look like a rudder repair. That is the rudder stalk if that's the right word. What would you call that? Besides the camera mount, those cameras have not been stabilized in previous days. The aft camera, the ass end camera on these boats has not been the bow cam has been pretty good there out on the end of the bowsprits. There's a shot from the aft camera. Goody, there's Slingsby.
Give us an idea of how much load is on that tiny rudder wing.
The rudder strut. The French have to finish the race. No, Michael Frank, they don't. That rule got changed some years ago. It used to be that you, and especially it made some sense. We talked about this yesterday. It made some sense in the days when it was rough and bumpy and a boat broke down, and maybe the other boat might break down if you had to sail in the same conditions. So we required under the rules, say having helped write the rules for, well, the last 40 years up until the last two cups, you'd have one boat break and retire, and you required the other boat to continue to race to see if they could get through in one piece in the prevailing conditions. But that was a bit like sending a boxer out, as I said yesterday, after one of the boxers has been KO'd, knocked out, and then having the other boxer sit there and shadow box for the rest of the 9 rounds or whatever the match was. Not so interesting. So now these days, once a team is retired, the umpires can award the match to the other team, which has been done now here. The French have their win against USA on this chart, the green dot. You can see there's the win by the French over the Americans here on the scoreboard. They should finish. It's just for practice. Well, I don't know if the French will keep going or they'll preserve their beautiful shots of Barcelona. Beautiful town it is. And spent a fair bit of time there between the 90s. There's the famous Sagrada Familia Cathedral. Is it a cathedral or is it a basilica? Cathedral. Still under construction after what? Hundreds of years. Are they still racing? They're going to go to a package now, interviewing pre-recorded package of those two. Mark Michelson, hello, good morning to you, sir. It was nice to chat with you by phone yesterday afternoon. And Mark, our weather guru for Sailing Illustrated, has been in the 8 years we've been doing this. 8 years! Bayesian, likely a waterspout or microburst with straight line winds. Dug, I think he meant not drug, dug anchor at more than 2 knots bow forward. I am only guessing, but if the anchor finally rebit bow forward in huge breeze, the boat would pivot on the what's OW, and the combination of windage and momentum could cause a capsize. Sorry to hijack the thread. No, thank you for that. Anybody else got an opinion? That would be good. That would be good to hear your opinions. You know, I'm reading this morning, the French apparently are launching, the Italians apparently are launching an inquiry into the sinking of the Bayesian and a manslaughter inquiry. And I know the Brits have sent their accident investigation board or team members down there to check, because it's a British registered boat, registered in London, Bayesian, owned by that super rich guy. They call him the what? The Microsoft guy of the UK. John Spango saying doors open, keel up. Yeah, it sounds to me this morning reading that, John Spangos, that maybe the Bayesians, you know, those big boats, those big super yachts have got garage doors to get the toys in and out, both on the side and on the back, most of them. I don't know specifically about this one. But it sounds like, the captain, the Kiwi captain's alive. He's in the hospital, or was, and along with some others who, there were 22 people on the boat, 5 of whom had died. Shell door and engine room doors were open, John Spangos is saying. So the keel was lifted, and they do keep the keel lifted at anchor, because apparently if it's down, it's a centerboard. if the centerboard is down, apparently it slats back and forth and makes a hell of a racket, and people can't sleep. So it was up at anchor. The storm came through, a microburst or a water spout or a tornado, whatever you want to call it. But apparently the aft door, from what I'm reading this morning, was open. And the boat sank stern first, or at least sank down, and then rolled over and then went to the bottom. That's what I'm reading this morning. Tell me if that's what the rest of you are saying. It's a fixed keel. Only the centerboard was partially up, and the centerboard is not ballasted. Well, whatever. And they keep those doors open. John Spangos is saying, who sounds like he's got a lot of the good oil, as you Kiwis would say, the vent, because it gets hot as AF, I think, hot as fudge in the boat without those doors open. Of course, it's very warm this time of year in Sicily. Okay, let's go back to the races as we're getting ready to see American Magic, see if they get repaired, because they have another race, don't they?
Oh, Tom, it's Glenn here, mate. It looked like a pretty decent...
Let's listen in for a sec.
From the transom of the boat there, and just wondering what
Glenn Ashby talking to their coach.
Something with the rake ram, the rake cylinder for the rudder rake. I'm not exactly sure. There's a whole bunch of hydraulic experts down the back there having a look at it, and I've been up trying to help fold the jib, which is an unusual activity for me because everybody was so busy in the back.
Nice work, mate. No, sorry to hear that breakage, but yeah, well, you guys will be back, I'm sure.
Hey, Tom, one final question. When you have a breakage like this, and you're the coach, you deal not just with how they sail, but with
Terry
their heads as well.
Hutchinson
You
in
have
the
to get
middle.
inside their head a little bit and say, okay, just keep moving, or are they smart enough just to know that now?
Oh, these guys are...
Steve MacGyver, he has been criticized for asking some kind of half-assed questions. I think he does a good play-by-play. He's a good host. He's certainly less hyperbolic and a lot better than what we've been seeing on Sail GP. I think this commentary team in general, in my opinion, see what you all think, but yeah, he ought to leave the questions to Shirley and to Glennie Ashby. Okay, the Americans don't race again today. See you tomorrow, what they just said. The schedule got changed from what was published. Now they're going to run a package about New York Yacht Club and American Magic.
1983, when Australia won the cup and took it down under. Now they're back, and they've charged the team at American Magic with a task of reclaiming sailing's holy grail.
Okay, well, Luca Craig, hello to you down in Auckland, replying to Michael Frank. Oracle first kicked off this idea of Defender racing in the Challengers. What I hear, what one hears, is that for several months now, the Challengers, not led by New York, but the Challengers as a group, have been upset at the Kiwis for putting themselves, via the protocol, into racing, not just the preliminary regatta, forget about this, but a week from Thursday, past Thursday, going forward now, you're going to see the Defender racing in the Louis Vuitton Cup. Now, why is that? Because they don't have a second boat. All the teams agreed to only build one boat, so the Defender technically doesn't have anybody to race against, to have a trial horse. So they put themselves into the Louis Vuitton Cup, at least the round robin, which is, it's a triple round robin, quite a bit of racing. So they're getting a beat on the Challengers, and you never know if the Kiwis, who can sandbag because they don't have to win any races, they're going to be in the match anyway, right? So you don't know if they're racing at full tilt or not, but they're racing in the Louis Vuitton Cup, and the other Challengers are not amused about that, including the Brits, who are the Challenger record. And the other Challengers are saying, Brits, why did you agree to that in the protocol? Why don't you go back in, let's amend the protocol, take them out to be fair to all the rest of us. And the Brits, because of the Challenger record and because the Royal Yacht Squadron is very cautious and careful, so they didn't want to agree to that. Okay, I get it. That's okay. Everybody knew going in that was the rules, but is it correct? No, it's not. And always one of the great things was when, after the Challenger Selection Series, great thing in the history of the Cup. Challenger Selection Series, finally, you got a challenger out racing against the defender in that first race of the match. And it was very interesting indeed to watch that first race. Now, the Kiwis are going to have a real beat on the Challengers. Challengers, again, not sure if the Kiwis are racing at full tilt during the rounds robin phase at least. Now, after the rounds robin phase, the top four challengers advance to a semifinal phase. Turn that audio down a bit. There's Doug DeVos talking. He's one of the co-heads, along with Hap Fouth, of that syndicate, and Funder, he of Amway. And his interesting, Doug DeVos's dad, Rich DeVos, was the head of the America 2 syndicate. Larry Leonard and I can tell you about how cool Rich DeVos was, one of the two co-founders of Amway. And now Doug DeVos is a very keen sailor, more so than his dad, Rich, who Rich has now passed away. But Doug DeVos, a very keen sailor, and the co-owner of Quantum Sales, at least was, until they sold it to North. Am I babbling on here? Regardless, you got the top four challengers then going on into a semifinal, and they get seeded coming out of the rounds robin, first against four, second against third. Maybe first place gets to choose their opponent in the semis. I don't know. And those are both first to win, 5 or 6 races, or maybe as many as 7. So the challengers get racing against themselves at the end of the Louis Vuitton Cup, the Challenger Selection Series. But the defenders by then has got a pretty good idea of what is going on among the challengers. This New York Yacht Club package still going on.
That's what success is. You win.
There's Doug DeVos.
You have a role at that point once you win to
Great sailor, keen sailor. A lot of Great Lakes sailing. Those of you who are fellow Michiganders will know. There's T. Hutch, the head of sailing. He took himself off the boat, which I think was wise, which is why I still think Ben should have done that. Still could do it. What are the other comments rolling in here? If they don't want to race NZL, everyone just forfeit the races. Well, so far, J. Frederick Bland, no one has really raced the Kiwis in earnest in this preliminary regatta. No one has raced them in earnest because, as you will have seen, in the first 3 races, the Italians had a good start against them, and then they had a soft water failure, and the boat fell off the foils, and they quit in the early stages of the first leg of that race. And then in the second race, the Brits fell off the foils and didn't race them. People think they actually were racing in earnest, didn't fall off the foils on purpose. They think, but they don't know. Because the Brits have said, oh, we should go out and, we should, as the Challenger of Record, we should honor our deal. That's what I'm hearing. But maybe not. Maybe they just were giving lip service to that notion and then fell off the foils to make it look like they didn't want to race the Kiwi, or like they did want to race them, but didn't really want to race them. And then the third race, the French didn't even show up. They weren't even in the big overhead shot at the start. They were off on the left jockstrap someplace over in the boundary area. I don't know what that was all about. Watch what JS does with Ben in the start box. Okay, we got Jimmy Spitfire Spithill coming up now for Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli against, are the Brits racing 2 in a row? So they haven't rescheduled the Brits later in the day. The Brits just won a race, their first win. They beat the Swiss, and now we'll see if Jimmy, who had that fabulous start yesterday against the Americans, took Tommy Spithill to the cleaners, took him above the starboard end of the line. They're approaching the line, took them above the starboard. Here's the pin. Took them above the pin end well, they're both pin ends. They don't have a race committee boat out there. The starboard end of the line, and then Jimmy took off, and Tommy had to dip and actually did a double dipsy doodle because the first time they turned down and then started to turn back up, they realized they had not crossed over all the way to the pre-start side of the line. So they did an up and then a down and then a back up. By then they were way behind. Okay, so here we go. And if the Brits are quick again in this condition, this could be a hell of a race. Let's see. Let's hope. We need the challengers, all of them, to be good. We need the French to be good. We need the teams to all be competitive in the Louis Vuitton Cup. Back on Rich DeVos for a minute, John Spangos agreeing he was a fantastic guy. Yeah, he was one of the longest lived heart transplant recipients. He received a heart transplant in, I believe, London. And then on the 10th anniversary of his having survived and thrived with a female heart, Rich, because he had a big party in Valencia in roundabout, was it 07 or was it 010? I guess it must have been the 07 Cup, roundabout 07. And he brought his whole doctor team down from London. There are the four sailors. 6 minutes to the start, so we've got quite a bit of time here yet to start. Stingray's up in Seattle. Hello, Stingray. 0609. He got himself out of bed. He's a big night owl. Stingray, retired code jockey at Boeing. And America's Cup fan and groupie and really expert by now. He's really very glued to the Sailing Anarchy America's Cup forum and a good source of info for me over the long haul. Not just in the last couple cups, but really going back to 2010 and before. ESPN Plus, that's what I'm watching here. It's only, it's not unreasonable. It's kind of clunky to get onto it if you're on a cable system like I am. I could put it on I could put it on my phone, I guess, and then stream the phone to the system. But that's, I'd rather have the phone on in case we got to talk to one of you. Speaking of whom, there's Commodore Claire Harrington is watching our stream because she's at the Edgartown Yacht Club, the annual meeting. She's the past Commodore of Edgartown Yacht Club and now Vice Commodore of New York Yacht Club. Be the first, assuming she plays her cards right, which no doubt she'll do, she will be the first female Commodore of that storied and beloved and esteemed institution, New York Yacht Club, dating to the 1840s. Yeah, rudder. She's texting me. What happened to the rudder? Yeah, she didn't see it live. Rudder failure.
At the moment, absolutely perfect conditions for sailing these boats. 10 to 12 knots. With the gas on the way back. And that's how close we get to show people around the world the pictures.
So you got to keep the phone clear so you can text with your friends. And then, you want to watch this in your salon in your living room. On the big screen TV, it's kind of clunky, at least on our cable system, which is Xfinity, Comcast. To get ESPN Plus on the system, it is on the system, but you could also, if you've got an internet-enabled TV, you can use the voice command or click through and get to ESPN Plus, which is ESPN's streaming service. The streaming service, Keiko Bruni, some call him Checo. I heard Luca Devoti call him Keiko yesterday. I think that's the proper Italian pronunciation. Francesco Bruni, nicknamed Keiko, or Checo it looks like in English, with Jimmy Spithill. Keiko is the skipper, Jimmy is the starboard side, really the main helmsman. The main helms on these boats are all on the starboard side to run the boat, to steer the boat, drive the boat if you're a Sail GP person, in the, at least in the pre-start, and in the final starboard approach. You can also download the ESPN Plus app to a Windows laptop. Works. Yeah, okay. I know you can do that, and I could download it here on one of the computers, of which I've got 4 here in Studio B. But one is running the Zoom in case. And by the way, I've still got Zoom if anybody wants to come on the Zoom. I don't see anybody on. Here comes the start box. I've got Zoom on if anybody wants to come on like Graham Sweeney did yesterday. LRPP entering from the port end, looking upwind, crossing ahead of Ineos. Ineos just raced the prior race, so you could argue about the cyclers being tired, or you could argue, and therefore being a disadvantage, or you could argue that, well, maybe they're tuned up and they know the race course and maybe they have an advantage over LRPP who are coming in fresh, but not as tuned up. If you have a VPN, you can watch it on TNT Sports UK. Yeah, I can use the VPN, but you know, the VPN costs per month almost what ESPN Plus does. Coming up on a minute.
As I can, hearing from umpire Richard Slater there. Disaster for Ineos.
Ineos has a penalty? Do they have a penalty? So they've got to don't maneuver against them now, LRPP, if Ineos has got a penalty. Maybe the Brits rotated out the cyclers after the first race. Good point, Mark. 40 seconds. Brits leading back. LRPP, it looks like they are staying clear. And the Brits, why don't they have some kind of an indication if there's a penalty owed? 25 seconds. They entered the box too early, Graham Sweeney is saying. The start box. So now they're going to have to wait and let the Italians go ahead. That's why Jimmy's not attacking. Britt's getting down to the leeward end of the line. We'll let the Italians sail by to windward. A rookie error, Gareth Evans is saying. I'm telling you, they should get Ben off the boat. I'm sorry. Those of you who are Brit fans, Ben ought to run the campaign, ought to focus on getting the boat going fast, deal with his benefactors and backers. There's the penalty. They finally have an indication here. They need a penalty as soon as a team owes a penalty, in my opinion. LRPP in the lead.
This is the umpires. GBR boundary penalty. GBR boundary penalty.
GBR has a second penalty? A boundary penalty? Bloody hell. Is that a second penalty?
Clear. Penalty clear.
Ineos Britannia and race 11.
Smash it. There we go.
And they've cleared. That was the voice of Richard Slater, who's the chief umpire, saying that they've cleared their penalty, and now they're 200 meters behind. What is that?
Just over the entry line there early. By the smallest of margins there, the British pushing super hard. You just don't need to quite push that hard on entry, so a bit of an unforced error there. They'll be disappointed with that, followed up by a boundary penalty, so you're not going to win races with those unforced errors.
So they only had one penalty? I'm confused. What's going on? Boundary penalty meaning they entered the pre-start too early, that Richard Slater's calling that a boundary? What a load of virtual ball hang, Graham Sweeney is saying. Well, we saw in the replay that their bowsprit was over something. I think, Alex, I agree with you. I think I've heard 2 penalties. You know, I'm listening here in one ear to the commentary like all of you are, as well as watching. And I think they had a pre-start, enter the box early penalty, and then they had a port boundary error, cross the left. Yeah, okay, Alex Hayworth is agreeing. Early entry penalty, and then a left boundary error. Ben, you should not be driving the boat. You got too much on your plate. Get off the boat. let Dylan and Giles Scott run the boat, subvert your ego, go run the team, coach from the coach boat, manage your backers, Sir James Ratcliffe and co. Do the PR with your beautiful wife. How can you make two stupid mistakes like that? J. Frederick Bland said they should just retire. Yeah, Alan Long, I guess I wasn't confused. I just wasn't sure. But thank you to the Fozy. Thank you particularly here to Alex Hayworth, who confirmed that they had 2 penalties. But yeah, they got to make it. I mean, I think it's SailGP's gotten better at making it quite clear who's got a penalty and who doesn't. But big lead, obviously, to the Itals, to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. You can't win the cup from the Royal Box at Wimbledon. Alex, you can win the cup. And T. Hutch took himself off the boat, and I think that was smart. You are the winner of the cup. If you are the CEO of the team and you win, you have won the cup. And if you're the skipper of the team and you don't win, you're not the winner of the cup, is my point. Okay, enough. I've gone on about that. I probably need more coffee. Get my 619 here in San Francisco, 0619. Welcome to all of you. And what is another Croutonic race, because the Brits got not 1, but 2 penalties pre-start. Well, 1 before the start and then 1 a port boundary error after the start. We'll see what the delta is here. I missed that delta. I was making some other notes here. Anybody else get that delta? If you win the pin, you can only sail 30 seconds before you're forced to tag. Yeah, Baton Rouge. Thank you for that. That's a problem. Well, you got to know, though, where the boundary is. The computer's got to tell you that, unless they had a computer problem. Alex Hayworth said, don't worry, the next generation of Brits are way better than this lot. I hope so. Sir Ben has gotten so gaunt, it surprises me, Laurie Fullerton. Yeah, that's a point. From stress, well, he's probably very fit as well. 23 seconds. Thank you, everybody. That was the delta at the first gate. 23 seconds. So I think all things considered that the Brits are only 23 seconds behind, but half an hour delta, Gareth Evans saying. Bye, Rick Bannerell. I hope your car was repaired successfully yesterday in Paramus, New Jersey. Heading for the Connecticut water, shooting the Championship of Champions Regatta at Stamford Yacht Club. That's a cool event. I, having raced in it a few times back in the 70s. Graham Sweeney says this is like watching the Macy's parade. Championship of Champions here in the U.S. So they take the class champions in various one-design classes. And then at the end of the season, it is only August, they put them in a one-design class of boats. The boats are donated, are provided by the host club, and everybody goes at it. That's a good event. Brits do it too, I believe. The Aussies, I don't know if the Aussies still do that. Other countries, some countries have a similar Championship of Champions. Hello, Bing Bong. Do they not have time on distance computers? Well, they must have that display. I mean, you can switch, William Sangmeister, a.k.a. Bing Bong. You can switch, obviously, between various screens and feeds. 294 meters, 300 meters has been the pretty consistent lead. The Italians ahead of the Brits. Live wind. I wish they'd leave the live wind up all the time. 198 degrees, so southwest-ish. South-southwest, 9 knots. That's what we said at the pre-start. Championship of Champions. I don't know if it's online. You know, last year U.S. Sailing stupidly ran it in radio-controlled yachts. Okay, that's the real deal, and that's a growing part of our sport, actually. But to run a one-design championship in RC boats, and predictably the top three or three of the top four, I can't remember, were all RC sailors, not other class champions. And you could take the Thistle champion or the Lightning or the Snipe champion and put them in RC boats and expect them to be competitive quickly against... No, not going to happen. But thank goodness the CEO of U.S. Sailing, the non-sailing CEO, is gone. Well, at least he will be as of August 30th. There are the ITALs on the Italian Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli on the upwind right. There's their coach, Philippe Presti, in the PIP, the picture-in-picture box. He's got to be smiling and happy. As Luna Rossa beat the Americans yesterday after that great pre-start by Jimmy Spitfire Spithill against Tom Slingsby. They were teammates here in San Francisco 2013 on board the Oracle Team USA catamaran. That looks closer than it really is because of the foreshortening there of the lens. 16 sec delta at gate 3. Thank you. Gate 3 or gate 2, Chris, actually?
The boat is very close to the water in terms of the end plate effect. And certainly Jimmy Spittle and Francesco Bruni are doing a pretty good job. And really, after that era in the...
I mean, the Brits don't look slow. I agree with what I think I'm hearing Peter Lester saying in the background. They're on leg 3 of 6. So, yeah, that would have been leg 2 delta or gate 2 delta of 16 seconds. Right, Chris Exley? Again, if anybody wants to join Zoom, come on here and be a co-host. You don't have to say anything. Just look pretty on your camera. You don't even have to have your camera on if you don't want. I've got the Zoom up. Graham Sweeney came on yesterday. We appreciated it very much. There's the code. Keep me company here in the studio. Yeah, gate 2. Thank you for that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here on this day 3. I don't know if we're going to do this beyond tomorrow. We will do it tomorrow morning at 0500 Pacific. Delta 230 meters and change. Graham Sweeney says he couldn't get Zoom to connect. Okay, let me redo the Zoom and see if I've made a mistake here. Maybe others have tried as well.
Glorious pictures coming off our galleys, just showing you the vista that they sail in front of on the Mediterranean, that port of Barcelona in the background.
I've redone the Zoom. Let me see if I've got that right.
Our team have been listening to their onboards and not happy with attacking either. They're attacking from 33 knots to 25 minutes. It's not good enough, Glenn, is it?
Yeah, it's a big speed drop, and if this breeze keeps dropping down over the next 10 or 15 minutes, we could...
You know what? I signed in, Graham, with the wrong... Let me redo this. Instead of my standard meeting, I just did a new meeting, apparently. I use Zoom so rarely, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Slight gain, it would appear, if you look at those meters between the two boats by Ineos Britannia on this upwind leg. Slight gain, you can see it.
I think it's got lighter at that top end of the course. The conditions are definitely changing and becoming more and more unstable.
Just wonder whether that plays into the window of Ineos Britannia and how it performs in different air.
Only 8 to 9 knots of breeze now at the top end of the course, Stephen. So definitely we're seeing a drop in pressure. So going to be interesting this next lap or two.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli leading Ineos Britannia into the top gate to complete the halfway mark of race number 11 in the Louis Vuitton Preliminary Regatta here.
Race not very exciting. Again, the rich get richer. They win off the starting line.
And in comes Ineos Britannia. It appeared from what we saw they made a slight gain on that upwind leg. And
What's this delta here at gate 3? Hi, Rick Hayes in Chicago. Nice to see you on. Long time. Name of Starboat Sailor and Sailing Family. 23 seconds, the delta at gate 3. So that wasn't, it was 23 at gate 1, it was 16 at gate 2, and then 23 at gate 3. So they're back up to with the lead they had at the top mark the first time.
Let's go to chase zero, Pete. How much is that wind softening out there?
38.
Yeah, well, mainly dropping in velocity, and what we're seeing now is the downwind angles have got tighter. We just noticed.
Okay, so Pete Lester saying it has gotten softer on the race course. Gotten softer, apparently. Pedro Foiling Sailor in Sydney, where it's nearly midnight, 23:20, 11:30 p.m. I'm getting frustrated watching this, Tom. It's not good for my mental health, but the good news is it's motivating me to go displacement sailing in a fleet with more than 2 boats in the fleet. I appreciate you doing this, as it is the only way I can watch it live. Thank you. Peter Stevenson, a.k.a. Pedro Foiling Sailor, joining us. A lot of people on here. Welcome. See if I can get this bloody Skype working. Or Zoom, rather.
Both teams would have made their sail selection based on 12 to 14 knots, what we saw pre-start. How much of an effect is that to be on the smaller jib and having to search for power?
Definitely hard exiting manoeuvres with smaller jibs on for sure in the lighter air, and in a straight line you're still trying to get the power out, but it's exiting the manoeuvres that just is so difficult when you get to the very, very bottom range of both the mainsail and the jib. So you can see there the power of that twin skin mainsail, huge mast rotation and camber in that mainsail now, and even the smaller jibs really, really deep. So very, very minimal Cunningham, very, very stood sections to really generate that horsepower out of the rig.
Even just watching that, a massive amount of adjustments, as you say, to the mast, to the traveller. There's a lot going on as the winds drop now.
Still showing a little bit of gate bias on our side, on the left side. Wind directions, I think the wing is still settling. I agree with you. I think it's the most simple choice, and I don't see why not to go left gate. Just a little earlier on the jibe on the ley line, that's all. Coming up, visual, have a look.
This is the race committee. We are moving the windward gate, shortening the course to 1.5 nautical miles.
So another change to the length of the course because of the wind softening, but that actual margin that Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli has on Ineos Britannia has actually lengthened on the downwind leg, which means they are...
Excuse me. Okay, I think I've done this right now. I think I have the Zoom up if you want to join Graham Sweeney or anybody else on 267-2206-570. See if that works now. Graham, 1851 is the passcode as usual. That's what we got going. There's an interesting shot. Check back into the race here. Here's the Delta at gate 4 coming up. Does look softer on the surface of the water. Delta has increased 28 seconds. There's Julia coming on. So she's my, sorry that I had the wrong meeting code. they've updated the software, and I use Zoom so rarely that going on with a bespoke meeting ID like the one we normally use here, 267-220-6570 is my personal ID, and 1851 is our passcode routinely. Okay, the Brits, back almost 360, almost 375 meters. I just think, Sir Ben, okay, I'm not going to say it again. You all know how I feel. There's Julia. Julia, upstairs in the Commodore's suite. She has this townhouse here in the marina, which she's owned, and she and her late husband have owned since forever. And she has the top floor, the penthouse suite, the top apartment. And almost 10 years ago, I was living across the street when I came back from Europe to help run the Cup here in 2013. Lived across the street, and then they had, here in the Beach Street Yacht Club, they had a tenant who retired and moved to Palm Springs, and her late husband said, "Tom, you ought to come over and live in this apartment instead of the expensive one across the street. Julia will give you a good deal," which he has done. Oops, now I hear some audio coming through. And he said, Julia's late great husband Conrad said, you know, she'll give you a good deal, which was a hell of a lot less expensive than what I was paying across the street. And I had to fix the place up because it hadn't really been improved in 30 years. So put some money into it, fixed it up, and that's what we call the Beach Street Yacht Club. And Julia then became my co-host on the Sailing Illustrated shows because she loves to do that. Just comes down the elevator. She and her husband put an elevator in this place back, I don't know, 15 years ago. One of the best investments they said they ever made. They wanted to live here until they went out feet first, and Conrad did. He died upstairs in bed and passed away, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Terrific sea captain that he was for Hamburg Süd. Ran post-war, was a third mate, second mate, then ultimately a captain, and helped run their operations back and forth to the Americas, north and south, and then ended up running the West Coast for years. Joined St. Francis Yacht Club, which is where I met Conrad and Julia, at the corner of the St. Francis. Lothies now many years ago, and they said, come on over and have a vodka cranberry. We'll have a final. And I did, and we've been fast friends ever since. Excuse me. Bill Canfield, I hope that as we get deeper into the event, there will be more drama created. It's not good when the most exciting event is a breakdown. Agree with Stingray, it is a tough watch. Mr. President, Bill Canfield, former president of the Virgin Islands Sailing Association, Posey, regular viewer of the show, hasn't been on in a while. I'll have to get him on again. Here comes LRPP into the top gate, the last time. How would you know if they are sandbagging, if they've dialed back, taken the foot off the pedal a bit with this comfortable lead at gate 6, which is gate 5 rather. Top gate at the end of the third upwind leg. Going to be round about 28 seconds again. Call it 30 seconds. That's what the TV has shown. So not much in it in terms of increase or decrease in the delta. There's Graham Sweeney. Hello, Graham. Welcome.
Conrad said, yeah, she'll give you a good deal.
How are you?
A lot less expensive than what I was paying. And I had to fix the place up. It hadn't really been improved.
Okay, I'm hearing a lot of audio back from you. Why am I hearing audio back from you? Maybe I'm hearing it back from Julia. Julia, can you turn your audio microphone so I can... Julia, mute yourself, please, upstairs.
Back, I don't know, 15 years ago. One of the best investments.
Yeah, Julia's muted herself. Now, Graham, go ahead and talk.
How's that then?
There you go.
Plenty of pace.
Yeah, I think Julia's watching it on 2 different devices, and that's why I'm getting the sound back from her. Graham, what are you seeing? What do you think?
It's I'm not sure I like what I see, but it's a race. I mean, it's not much of one. It all ends at the start, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's who wins at the start and who breaks down or who doesn't.
I'd like to see how much spoiled air is behind these boats.
Yeah, I think Clark Chapin said earlier in the show, as you know, that we'd all like to see a computer-generated, obviously, disturbed air graphic, upwind and down.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Any other observations here as the Brits are almost 600 meters behind?
Have you noticed on the Brit boats that the cyclors have spoilers?
Spoilers?
Yeah, on their coamings they have spoilers.
Oh, you mean kind of out in front of them, just little?
No, at the back. They got a little wing.
Oh, they do. The cyclors do on the back.
On the back of not on them, actually on the coaming.
Yeah, I've seen that. Although I thought I'd only seen it in front, I didn't see that they had something in the back. Is that what?
Yeah.
Which boat? Which boat?
On the Brit boat.
On the Brit boat. Okay, here's the finish. As LRPP have won by heaps.
Yeah.
I know you don't agree with me. I can see Graham down here on, this is computer 3. I'm streaming on computer 1 on the main computer and then running graphics here on computer 2. Thinking Luca was correct about the Brit foils. Alan Long is remembering what Luca Devotee said yesterday, that the Brit foils are not as good as perhaps some of the other teams. As the Brits coming in now to the finish.
Okay.
What's the delta, Graham? It's going to be 46 seconds.
Yeah, 46.
Well, that's a disappointment. Okay, Graham, you're on. What's your observations here of all that we've seen?
Well, I can't really explain this. It's been very interesting today. It was nice to get a win, but it was a very hollow victory. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're really watching the racing yet. I think people are still having a bit of a play around and just trying stuff out.
Yeah, no doubt. Excuse me, no doubt you're right. There's a lot going on here we can't see, can't know. Although I am starting to hear more and more from inside the teams. You know, I've got somebody on each of the teams, in some cases 2 or 3 even, that aren't afraid to pass through information. Sometimes I'm being fed BS too. I have to be very careful to separate the wheat from the chaff. But I think the handwriting, as Lucas said, is on the wall with respect to the top 2 or maybe 3 teams, depending upon how you think American Magic is, if they're in there with LRPP and the Kiwis. And then there's the other 3. What do you think?
Well, in the old days, if something went wrong, you'd send a guy forward with a bit of tape and maybe a sail tie, and he'd fix the problem and the race would end. But it seems nowadays you hear a bang and a puff of smoke or something, and that's it. They all sit there scratching their heads and ringing some guy on a rib saying what's going on. And I don't get it. I mean, it's not sailing. I listened to the Inside Tack. Did you watch that last night?
I did.
Did you? What did you get?
Let's tell everybody what the Inside Tack is. That's the Brits the Brits are doing a fabulous job. In fact, you wonder if they're doing too much work on media, because there's so much. There's a fire, as I say, there's a fire hose of media going out. And of course, Ben's wife is a media professional. Is she a ITV or a BBC, or she's a presenter, right?
She's got her own channel, I think, or something or other.
On
she's
YouTube.
Doing.
Well, they are, and of course, Ineos is feeding this. There's, as the sponsor, they want to get some coverage, and they're getting a lot of ink. And they do the podcasts, and they do this, and they do that. So yeah, Inside Track. Go ahead.
I was getting the feedback from the guys there that were talking, the Cyclor, Jack Hunter, and Cornish, and it seemed as if they just had a massive scolding. The way they were talking, it was like they were trying to big up a really bad day. And they said they'd been out in the water and they'd been practicing their starts. Now, it's a bit late. You know, these guys they should know what they're doing now. If they're falling off the fours because they don't have enough power, then that's where the argument's coming in, because the left guy on the left cockpit is saying, let's do this maneuver, and the guy in the right cockpit's saying, hey, we can't do this maneuver, and the other guy on the left said, well, I'm in charge, I'm doing it anyway, and then they fall off the foil. This is ludicrous.
Yeah, well, we saw that yesterday when Ben on the starboard side and Dylan on the port side had that disagreement about whether they could hook. I mean, that was a tactical discussion. So I think the problem is they've spent so much time trying to work these new boats up, and they're so complicated and so difficult. They don't have time to go out and do racing stuff, and they're hoping that they would get race practice and boat handling practice during the preliminary regatta and the early stage of the LVC, which starts next Thursday, the Louis Vuitton Cup. But yeah, it's not the America's Cup we used to know and love, Graham. But as you also know, I showed on the show on, what day is this? I guess last Tuesday or Friday, a week ago. I showed some of the stuff that was going on in Newport late in the round robin when they were in the semifinals of the 83 LVC, the first ever Louis Vuitton Cup. And those boats were breaking down, and those are the 12s, which they've been sailing all summer, June, July, August. This was now late in August. And those boats were breaking down. So, it's a resource issue. How much time, how much money, and that's where the Kiwis have been so smart and spend their money wisely, and they're so well prepared vis-a-vis the other teams. What do you think?
Well, how much money can you throw at it? You can throw millions at it, and then doesn't mean you're going to win a race. I mean, the Brits are well rehearsed at that, aren't we? we've
over 173 years. I'm just looking to see what's going on. Over 173 years, you mean?
We're heavily invested in it. Let's put it that way.
Well, you'll win it back sooner or later, and
maybe not this time, eh?
There's David Richard Morse checking in. Graham Sweeney is, I'm sorry, I had the wrong Zoom ID up in whatever meeting I was running. The standard meeting ID, 267-220-6570. The passcode is 1851 if anybody else wants to join. Julia, you joined, it looked like, from upstairs, but you can't do that and have your audio on because it'll feed back. You're watching it on a TV or on your computer, and then she was zooming in on her phone or vice versa. I don't know. So back on via hands-free phone en route to Connecticut. So don't drive, Rick Bannereau, and text, or in this case, he is. Valencia was awash with repairs after every outing. Gordon Smith is. Good morning, Gordon. Good evening. What time? He's in Copenhagen, where it's almost 4 in the afternoon. Valencia was awash with repairs after every outing. I fear that very few of those hulls are still afloat. True.
Yeah.
True. Graham? Anything else?
No, I can't give you any more disappointment. I mean, I'm holding it all in at the moment, and these are only early days. I mean, it's preliminary, and I've got to believe that we still can do it. I really do.
You're saying we, the Brits?
Yeah, of course we are. I've got to keep hold of that. Otherwise, if I come on here and I start telling everyone I think the Brits are rubbish or anything like that, I think I'll be spending a few nights in the Tower of London. So I've got to be, I've got to hold on to it. I think,
The Tower of London's just a tourist attraction now, right? They don't put anybody in. You spell it jail differently than we do. Gaol. We spell it JIL.
My family has a special dispensation to go and visit it when we like. Well, when it's open, we have a bugle that's held up in there that was played at the last post for the Second World War. So we're allowed to go and visit our family relic at any time.
A bugle. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
That's the one. Yeah. So it's hanging up in there somewhere, and we're allowed to go and visit it.
Gareth Evans says they can still lock you up in the tower. I think
they probably could, yeah.
I think Graham, would be fun to be in the tower. Overnight.
Probably.
You know, they ought to make that a tour of the bed and breakfast where you go in there and you get overnight and have to sleep on the floor and the rats are running around and you're in chains or something, and then they bring some gruel in the morning and.
A bit like watching the America's Cup, you mean?
Oh, dear. Speaking of which, they're getting ready for the Alinghi Emirates Team New Zealand. Now, this is going to be a bellwether, a barometer. They're starting in under 3 minutes now to see if Alinghi shows up, to see if they race in earnest against the Brits, because so far nobody has raced in earnest against the Brits. And it is going to be interesting to see if the challengers really are boycotting the Brits by not racing them. So far, we don't know if the Brits fell off the foils on purpose to get out of that race in the pre-start of yesterday's race, or whether they indeed did not, or whether it was an honest mistake. But let's see, there's a lot of back and forth about computers. Yeah, Gareth Evans, we're running I always run 3 computers here in the studio for live streaming. The streaming computer, the graphics computer, which runs the slides and videos. And then if we have a guest, like we have Grandma over here on this computer, that's the Skype/Zoom/ all kind of auxiliary computer. And then there's another computer over on Julia's desk that she uses to watch the comments on. So we actually have 4 in here. But let's go stop gas bagging and go watch the racing. It's coming up on a minute. We have the entry. I hear the accommodations in the tower are something you can lose your head over. J. Frederick Bland. I have the comments up here in this section of the broadcast, the multi-view for the broadcast. 18 scenes we can select between with the mouse. That's how I change scenes between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go watch the racing. There's a minute to start, and you have the ETNZ circling their prey, the Alinghi Red Bull Racing.
Accelerate here, Emirates Team New Zealand getting close to getting them hooked.
Trying to hook them, it looks like. That is the Kiwis trying to hook the less experienced. You got Pete Burling and Nate Outeridge on that boat, and they are some good. They're well below the line with 30 seconds to go. Swiss leading back, heading to leeward. Kiwis tacking away. Look at that, tacking away. It's what we used to think of as a split tack start. I don't know if they can lay the pin end of the line. I guess they can. The pin end, meaning that they're both pin ends. The starboard end, which would normally be the race committee boat end, and the pin end normally the port end. Both boats have terrific starts at the opposite ends of the line. We haven't seen that. We have a sailboat race here as the Kiwis on the upwind right, bow to bow, and the Swiss down at the bottom of your screen here, headed for the boundary on the upwind left side of the track. Mark Husted saying this will be interesting. Mark's up in Göteborg in Sweden normally.
Side, and I thought they just showed to have good pace. I think this intersection looks like it's advantage to the team coming over from the beach, and that'll be Emirates Team New Zealand. But a very good
I agree, Peter. You got the Kiwis ahead already on starboard tack, starboard right of way. Look like they're in a bit of a puff, moving fast, a couple knots faster than the Swiss. Not much in it, but who knows if they're trying to make this look close. They will cross ahead clearly, as they do, and then they face plant. They tack on the face, forcing Alinghi Red Bull Racing to the upwind left. More pressure on the right. We've seen all 3 days. Yeah, I'm commentating from my blimp. Another snooze fest, J. Frederick Bland is saying. James. Finally, some match racing. Pricey, David Price down in Sydney, where it's closing in on midnight. Welcome to you, David. Say hi to your bride, Christiane, one of our favorite Fozy of all time, in fact. Gordon Smith saying the Tower of London was a prison until 1952, the year before I was born. For notable London gangsters, the Cray twins. Another gain here to ETNZ. The losses in the tack to the Swiss. See their speeds. Come on, put them up, guys. Let's see the speeds. That's got to be a dirty air position, forcing the Swiss to tack again to the upwind left.
Emirates Team New Zealand just giving Alinghi Red Bull Racing no wiggle room to squirm out of there. They're just going to keep coming back, and they'll just keep herding them over to the left-hand side of the course to then ultimately just make them sit in their gas on the long one back to the top mark. So the pain is yet to come.
I think I'm ready for another coffee. Maybe I'll go back to bed after this and take a nap. Leg 1 of 6, the Kiwis ahead of the Swiss. No surprise.
Slightly better with each tag. There's just a slow bleed, isn't there? They're just dropping meter by meter.
Really threading the eye of the needle. Alinghi Red Bull Racing, not much they can do at the moment except just keep in.
NZ protecting the right, Mark Husted, absolutely. Hello, Guy, don't call me Guy Briere. These are sister ships, correct? No, they are not. The Swiss have done their own thing after buying the first boat, which was Alinghi's first boat from last, it was ETNZ's first boat from last time. That was their B1, they called it, their boat 1, which was their practice yacht, and they got to Barcelona early and got up to speed and so on. But then they've gone off and done their own design program. Alinghi has. The French are the sister ship to, in fact, the design program was shared by the Kiwis. Another strange situation. So it's the French that are sister ship to the Kiwis. Sunny Saturday afternoon in BC End. Gareth Evans, where are all the spectator boats? Good question, Gareth. There's a few down there at the bottom end. There's a few down there.
For AC37 Racing.
Guy Briere, a famously cool member of the Southern Yacht Club in New Orleans. Guy, are you coming up to Stag Cruise next month for St. Francis Yacht Club's Gentleman's Retreat up in the Delta? And are you in New Orleans or in Pensacola or in ports between? Gordon Smith, good question. I don't know why they followed ETNZ at that mark, but I guess they thought they needed to minimize their maneuvers. What was the delta? Did somebody get the delta at the top mark?
About 12 seconds, I think.
Graham Sweeney got it. Thank you, Graham. 12 seconds.
Remember, this team is the benchmark, the defender. And actually for Alinghi Red Bull Racing, lots to be...
Guy Briere, unfortunately, I can't. Sorry, I'm in NO in New Orleans, and after this, I'm going to watch my wife crew for my daughter in a ladies' regatta. We'll miss you at Stag Cruise. Guy's always good value at a yachting event and otherwise. Yeah, they do carry more windward heel on that Kiwi boat, like you see the windsurfers and others do. That's the fast way. Big lead.
Get back up to target speed and angle quicker than Alinghi.
Pete Burling giving us the finger there. I don't think he meant to.
Windward heel, Glenn. Why is that
Nate
so
Outeridge.
powerful as the conditions are lighter?
We get a shot from each side of the Kiwi boat. Another criticism of the Cup is, you know, we got RoboCops in the boats. You got helmets and microphones and Kevlar, you know, bulletproof vests to keep the crew safe and spare air so if they get trapped, they can breathe. I mean, this is no sailing that is relatable. It's sailing that is not relatable to most of us who do normal sailing. 360 meters. The Delta, the Kiwis ahead of the Swiss. Maybe the Swiss are sandbagging themselves. Just trying to stay in the race, but not give away any performance to the Kiwis. But who knows? Delta, Graham, you said was 12 seconds at gate 1, and now the Delta is going to be rather more than that at gate 2, isn't it?
Yep.
Jeffrey Matzdorf saying, yawn.
Cool, calm, and collected. The defenders of the 37.
The AC, Alan Long, has become weird. Yes, indeed, sir. I think we all agree.
This is all about the long game, particularly for wannabe challengers.
Steve MacGyver trying to make, he's the lead commentator, the Kiwi radio guy, trying to make this interesting. It's all about the long game. Yeah, well, in the long history of the Cup, 29 seconds was that Delta. So there's a 17-second gain, Graham. What do you think, Graham? What are you seeing? What are you thinking?
As over, it's done over, isn't it? It's a done deal. Unless something breaks or something seriously goes wrong, that's it.
Yeah, unless the proverbial sea monster comes in and grabs them, or we have a water spout like whatever happened to Bayesian. Bill Canfield, if I'm a new sponsor wanting to get involved, do I go to AC or GP? Bill Canfield asking that because, of course, his son, Taylor Canfield, is the American skipper in Sail GP. Marcos Feinstein saying good morning. Marcos normally down in Long Beach or SoCal, excuse me, SoCal anyway. Got to keep asking what possible boat design changes for the next Cup cycle. If AM wins, any regression to traditional design, how much crazier can it get? Sorry, not a quick answer. No, nobody knows. And New York, the problem, Marcos, good question, of course, very good question. The problem is, as you know, Marcos, is that the team that wins, the designers, the sailors all say, hey, we know how to win this with the current package, the current equipment, the current program. So don't talk us into doing something different. And that's why there is, you know, it tends to happen. There's evolution, and then suddenly there is a revolution like happened in '88 with the Big Boat Challenge and that strangeness in '88, the Como off Point Loma. And then there was another disruption in 2010, another disruption, and suddenly we go to Molly Hulls in this madness. So Mel Roberts, who's with Ian Murray, is on the race committee. Mel Roberts, the voice of Ian Murray, the regatta director. They've changed the course again.
It's amazing how the technology has changed so much, not just on the boats, but the whole infrastructure of a yacht race.
Oh, God, I'm glad I'm doing this live stream in our watch party and not having to try to live commentate this and keep it interesting. At least you got some smart guy. Yeah, disruption in many ways, Marco. So, you know, you would hope that New York, if they win it, or the Yacht Squadron, or even Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, but, you know, you got the winning package. And then do you change? I think if the New York Yacht Club leadership had their way and didn't have the pressure of the fundraising and the people who are leading the syndicate, who have the big bucks, who are then, you know, trying to do what they are being told or being encouraged to do by their design and sailing teams, 400 meters. David Price, WMRT offer what we love stressing to watch it as an intense competition, in my view. Yeah, the World Match Racing Tour. Well, even your 18-footers that David Price, that your son is sailing in, Harry Price, and of course your daughter Olivia Price will be sailing in the One Design AC40s here, representing Australia in the Women's America's Cup. Give her our warm regards. Lori Fullerton saying, not to brag, but just had a story about Taylor Canfield and Sail GP US in the September issue of Sailing. Thank you, Lori. I'll go have a look. Sailing, the large format magazine that's been produced up in the Great Lakes area, globally here in the U.S., or nationally, national magazine, Sailing magazine, for many, many years, decades. And Lori Fullerton, who's a terrific journalist, photographer, and writer, saying that all great sailors in both teams, but mostly about commentators and TV in Sail GP. Yeah, it's dreadful in Sail GP. I'm sorry to say, it is dreadful. They get all excited and they get you jumping out of your seat. At least this commentary is calm and collected, and they're not just telling you what you can plainly see on the tube. They're giving you some analysis, some history and background. Jeffrey Matzdorf, totally agree. I have zero interest in an America's Cup with high-speed drag boats. Too bad every team had to sign a document saying that whoever wins the Cup has to keep the same platforms for the next AC. Jeffrey Matzdorf, that is not worth the paper it's not printed on, because a trustee cannot be bound. The courts have held, this is New York deed and trust law, and I know something about this, having won the two cases in the New York courts, both in 88 and in 2010. And, helped, if not oversaw, those court cases. But a future trustee cannot be bound by a previous trustee. Full stop. New York is not the current trustee. If they win this, some paper that was signed by somebody else does not bind the New York Yacht Club to AC 38, any kind of a former arrangement or agreement. Full stop. There, have I opined on that? I've opined on that.
Most certainly.
And most certainly, Graham agrees. Thank you. Yay, Jeffrey Metzler says. So that's all surplusage. In fact, it's been done before where the teams have all agreed, formally or informally, to, as a rite of passage, as an entry requirement almost into the event, you got to agree to keep it going. What do? They change it, and they have the right to do that. It's really something when Steve Groover would be celebrated to commentate Sail GP. Yeah, Baton Rouge. Any of you would probably be a better commentators team than we've got in Sail GP. I think Lisa Darmanin, the Aussie gal, is terrific, but she's not.
She's lovely.
Huh? Don't you agree, Graham?
Yeah, I like the girl who does the shoreside talk. She's got a nice way about her, and I think she does well. But
that's a different gal than Lisa, right? There's two gals now.
I can't remember her name, but she does a lot of the stuff in the back room, and I mean, I like her. I think she comes across really well, but the other people, they just keep coming out with total rubbish, and I mean,
yes.
I'm looking at this though, and I'm thinking, am I watching a sailing event or am I watching a cycling event? Is this a pedalo racing, or am I watching the America's Cup? I've got to stop thinking about it.
Graham, look at this, 700 meters.
Ridiculous.
Nicole, David Price is reminding us there's Nicole something. Is she an Aussie or Kiwi? I think she's a Kiwi, isn't she, David or Graham?
I'm not sure.
The gal who does and she's a little bubblegum, cheerleader type young gal on shore, but she's there doing it. She's interesting. At least she's not in a sound booth in London talking about being in the London Tower of London, because that's what sports are doing now, is they're putting their commentators for cost reasons, keeping them in the studios wherever it's like Gary Jobson doing our Olympic commentary for Marseille rather in Connecticut. And, you know, when, as David Price knows, who's a big fan of the Gov Cup, and many of you are, Marcos Weinstein and others, when Andy Rose and Matt Whitfield and I do the commentary for Gov Cup, we're out on the water. And, of course, we have a big boat that's now for years has been, Chris Bretschker has been, his parents let him have the boat, let us have the boat as our media platform, our TV boat. And that's where the cameras are. That's where the switching is done. Chris is actually switching, directing the show from that boat, and we're right seated next to him on the back of the upper deck on Adios. Nick Douglas. Now, Jamie, I don't think it's been Nick in Sail GP. It's somebody else. She was a squad member of the 2012 Olympic campaign for the women's match racing, Nick Douglas. But it's not Nick Douglas who's done the shore side for Sail GP. I know Nick well. She's been on the show on Sailing Illustrated. Okay, what's going on, Graham? Let's get back to this race here. Are you watching the Deltas, Graham?
I'm not. I gave up. It comes a point you just sort of switch off to it.
Exactly. I don't think I'm going to get more coffee. I think I'm going to, it's 7:09 here. I think I'll go back and take a nap.
Yeah, I think I'll need one.
I was some tired after yesterday's show. It was a terrific, fun time with Luca Devoti and Julia. Julia and I both really enjoyed that. Back and
It's lovely
forth.
to see Luca.
Wasn't it great?
Yeah. He's got such respect in the sport. He's such a lovely guy.
He is a sailing savant, isn't he? That's what I call him.
He is. I mean, he's a bit scary at times because you don't know what's going to come out. But I mean, if you want honesty, that's the way you're going to get it. So
he asked when we did a tech check in the 20 minutes before we went live yesterday. He said, "Do you want the Luca diplomatic, kind of the Luca B, or do you want the original, the OG, the Luca A?" Telling it like it is, and both Julia and I said, that's easy. We want Luca unfiltered. We want Luca OG.
It's nice to know he's got a filter. I never knew he had one.
I think when he ran for vice president of World Sailing, he developed a bit of a filter. But, you know, the guy's just so smart. And his brain is, he speaks, as we said yesterday on the show, 5 or 6 languages. Fluently. You should hear him in a meeting.
Yeah.
And he can, and a lot of people can who are not Anglos, but who are used to, Europeans who are used to speak. But he can switch fluently between, 4 languages anyway. Gotta like Finn sailors, Larry Kennedy. Totally agree. The Finn sailors, like Luca Devoti, are the salt of the earth and salt of our sport, as are the starboat sailors. Is this over finally? No, they're at gate 5, so they're going downhill now to the finish. Kiwis will be 4-0 at the end of this. And Magnus the Magnificent, whose book is behind me here somewhere, there is no second. It is quite a good book, and I commend it to you, and have been commending it to you on the air, and the Sailing Illustrated show now for some time. What's the delta here? It's going to be over a minute. So are the Swiss sandbagging? Are the Kiwis sandbagging? What the hell is going on here? Do you take this, Graham, at face value?
Yeah, I think so.
You do?
I think what they've got to show their speed to see what they can do, and they're not going to find out unless they push themselves against the other boat. So they are. I don't think they're sandbagging. No, I think they're finding that they've got more problems than they thought they had before they got together with another bout.
They, the Swiss.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe. Are the Kiwis sandbagging to keep it, you know, a minute, to keep it under 5 minutes? It's only a minute 15.
I don't think it's sandbagging. I think what we've got here is we've got preservation. I think they're preserving the boats. I mean, they're giving enough to win, but they're preserving the boat. So I don't think it's sandbagging as such.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean, you could well be right. Probably are, usually are.
Who knows?
Pedro Foiling Sailor saying, night, night. Thanks for sharing. Good night, Peter. 013-0013, 13 minutes after midnight in Sydney. Thanks for joining us. Mark Husted agrees that Luca Devoti is a legend and a hilarious character, never backwards and going forward. Yeah, he is. Yacht designer, Olympic silver medalist, so clearly a hell of a good sailor, a leader in the sport. Over 1,000 meters, a kilometer lead. The Kiwis ahead of the Swiss as the Kiwis come in to the checkered finish line.
Emirates Team New Zealand, the defender of the Louis Vuitton 37th America's Cup, have done pretty much a job, a flawless job on Alinghi Red Bull Racing. They will go into Sunday with a perfect record. They are 4 from...
So they're through, obviously. They go into Sunday's winner-take-all final race. We'll see who the other team is. Looks like it's going to be Luna Rossa, but who knows? What's the delta going to be, Graham? Going to be a minute 20?
I think we shouldn't really look at it.
And Gordon Smith is saying, remember, the Swiss are on their old mast, so maybe we're seeing, maybe because they broke their stick after 20 minutes of sailing the other day with their new mast, which was the replacement mast for the first mast that broke. Well, a lot of us have pushed, you know, I had Alinghi higher up in my rankings, and early on I thought they would be a dark horse among the challengers, but clearly not in the hunt, at least against the Kiwis. It's going to be north of a minute, the final delta.
Red Bull Racing come home to complete race number 12 of the Louis Vuitton.
About the same delta as the top gate.
To push at the start, but they just couldn't keep up.
Identical, in fact, a minute 15.
One win.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks goodness this torture is over. Gosh darn. You know, when people wonder, Graham, why our sport is not more popular on the tube, whether it's Sail GP or anything else, people tune into something like this, the pinnacle event in our sport. And again, if you go, let me turn that audio down a bit. If you go look, I don't know if you're a Redditor, if you ever look at Reddit, the big message board system online, and I watch Reddit and quite a few subreddits on various topics. I mean, health topics and sports topics and God knows what else. A lot of streaming. There's a lot of streaming information I get from the various subreddits that are about computers or live streaming and audio and video and so on. But the point is this, that you go on there, there are two big subreddits, actually. One is / America's Cup and one / AC37 or something. And the comment, I looked at both last night at some length, and Graham, the comments last night were disturbingly negative, almost to a comment. I mean, almost 100%. Just a shame for our sport.
It's upsetting the sailing world, I think.
Yeah, and of course, I as I've said any number of times, Julia and I will go over to the St. Francis Yacht Club, which has been a challenger twice in the America's Cup, helped host the America's Cup here when Golden Gate, the club just down the street from us, was the defender. And there is nobody, virtually, you know, Lance Burke, who comes on here, a.k.a. Fog Machine, and one or two other St. Francis members who will come on and watch, probably as much to watch Julia because they know her, and watch our shows. But I go over there for dinner or a meeting, a Stag Cruise meeting, or just to go over and have a fake beer at the bar. And Graham, nobody's interested. Nobody relates to this. In fact, there was the quote yesterday. I'm not telling you or anybody else on here anything they don't know. Let me get this email up from Clark Chapin, who kindly wrote down the quote from Luca. He said it so well yesterday. Let me find Clark's email. He said, Luca, yesterday on the show, said, Formula One is closer to the cars we drive than these boats are to the boats we sail. Final word to you before we wrap this up, Graham.
I think we're not. I don't think they're the future. I hope and pray they're not. I think they're going to be another arm of sailing, and it's only going to be an elitist version of it. I think it's not going to get down to club level. I mean, foiling is just too expensive and too fragile. True sailing happens in displacement boats, and that's just the way it's always been, and it will always be. This is just
I suspect
a novelty
right.
show.
I suspect you're right, and I think fragility is it's a new word that's popped up today. I mean, we've heard it before in this context, but I think you're right, Graham, that we've had a lot of fragility on display here again. We've seen it in Sail GP. We've seen it in the foiling NACRAs, in the Olympics, and even the other foiling boats. But the other problem is this venue. And of course, this is a medium air venue that, as Lucas said yesterday, I mean, he lives in Valencia, Spain. He's raced a lot in Barcelona. They had an ILCA Worlds there, as John Emmett will tell you, as Luca reminded us yesterday. And the ILCA Worlds, I turned the audio down a bit. The ILCA Worlds they had the race at 7 in the morning and at 7 at night, because as the summer progresses, it gets hot and hotter there on that coast, the southeastern coast of Spain, between Barcelona and Valencia and down to Alicante, and it gets hotter and hotter and lighter and lighter. So that's what you're going to see. And the other problem for the challengers is the Alinghi really doesn't have to tune up for any of this stuff, although they clearly are well tuned up. They got to tune up for the lighter conditions, or else they get a blowout, because they have the big, what the French would call a Mistral, and I can't remember what we call it in Spain. There's the scoreboard, or the official stats rather, for this race. Boring race that it was. All the races were boring today. We had a bit of a race there for a while in race 3, right? 46 seconds. What do you think, Graham?
We're going to look at if this is going to get light, we're going to look at boats which can push less air to come to the fore, and the only one I can think that's got that is the American Magic, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, I don't know how well they're going to do in the light. They're apparently good in the light, by the way. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, will it get any more fun?
Well, that's true. I mean, people are relating to the 12-meter era, which was, and the J-boats, which none of us remember seeing in person back in the 30s, but because none of us was alive then. Or there may be some of us who were alive, but I don't know anybody on here who was alive in the 30s and cognizant of the J-boat racing. But certainly the 12-meter racing was. Mark Holland saying, I watched TP52 from Newport 2 weeks ago, and it was super. Yeah. Displacement sailing might catch on. Mark, good point. Mark's been a regular on here lately.
You'll never know.
Yeah, Graham will never know. And Bill Canfield put 70-foot traditional, I don't know what MAL, what's that mean? Monohulls? And Marcos Weinstein's come up with a new word, irrelatable, up there at the top of the comments. Yeah, irrelatable. Cricket has had to rip itself apart to find a wider audience. I love 5-day tests, but the audience for TV is with 20 over matches. Yeah, Gordon Smith, thanks for that. Jeff Ogle replying to Alan Long. Alan Long, I started following the AC as a kid with Fremantle in '87, and the AC racing hasn't been great all that time. There have been great races and individual moments, but a lot of the time someone had a boat that was way better than the rest. True. But we could always rely on the start box action, yes. Primarily in the IACC boats, yes. And tacking duels upwind and downwind for a couple of legs at least. There is none of that with these boats because of the speeds and the guillotines hanging off the guillotines. Speaking of the Tower of London and I guess that's more of a French thing. Hanging off the side of the boats. It's like watching drag racing on water. It's wet. Ooh, there's good. That's good. Jeff, may I quote you? It's wet garbage. Okay, they're now looking at the wind.
I'm not the smartest guy in the room, right? I never have been, never will be. But I'll outwork you.
Yeah, Grant Dalton. They got to fill till the bottom of the hour. These races went quickly. They've got another 7 minutes to fill. We look at the time here in the studio. Mark Hustad off to start the barbecue, a rarity in Scandinavia. Catch you guys tomorrow. Yeah, we'll do this again at 0500. I think I'm going to switch off. Graham, final word to you.
Well, the thing is, I don't want to keep it too long, but I think it's not sailing. It's not a spectator sport either. The America's Cup never was, and it became a spectator sport, and we all got switched into it, and now we're looking at something that's really not a spectator sport again. I think it's just there's no feeling of sailing. There's no motion. There's no action. There's no characters. I mean,
exactly. So well put. So well put. I'm going to go back and transcribe what you just said because we're lacking the characters clearly. And there's no action, no motion. To the non-sailor, it looks like these boats are always sailing upwind. Well, they are always sailing upwind. No sails going up and down, no grinders, no coordination. Luca covered that beautifully yesterday, too. There was emotion, there was excitement, there was coordination on the boats.
Dennis Conner, love him or hate him, he was one hell of a character. And he made every event. I mean, even if they didn't win or even if they did win, it made no difference because you knew you were going to get a good performance from him.
Who was that? Who was that?
Dennis Conner.
Oh, Dennis. Yeah, DC for sure. And Ted Turner before him, really. And
they came out fighting, and you felt it.
And John Bertrand and Russell Coutts. I mean, Russell was kind of taciturn in his day as a skipper, but he was still a character. You never knew what he was going to say at the press conference. And, of course, another problem that I know that Richard Gladwell is so upset about, Richard down in Auckland, he's saying the other problem with this Cup is they're not doing post-race press conferences. They don't bring the people up there. They just have the so-called mixed zone where you as a journalist will remember that's been the Olympic influence on the America's Cup. But, of course, having a press conference where you put all the skippers up on the table with these races, that might not be such a good idea either.
There's an air of sterility about the whole thing.
An air of sterility.
Yeah.
Okay, Graham, thank you for coming on. Thanks to all the commenters that came
You're
on.
welcome.
We'll do. Will you come on tomorrow if I get the right meeting code up for tomorrow?
I'll give it a go. How about that?
Yeah, I'll try to get the right meeting code up. Meanwhile, my predictions before the racing today, there they are. I'll go back to them. And Lingy is through now to that winner-take-all final tomorrow after the first three races, finishing up the rounds robin. It looks like LRPP will go through, but it's not a done deal. I think American Magic still has a chance. I'm not sure. We'll see. Swiss, no chance. The Brits, no chance. And the French, no chance. If my calculations are correct. There's Tom Fishbeck. Tom, thanks again for the breakfast yesterday that you said. Don't send us one today. It's Saturday morning. We'll get ourselves some breakfast. But that was so much appreciated by Julia and myself. I took her a bun upstairs. She was watching faithfully upstairs as she was this morning. The man behind the mouth, Tommy Blackhaller. Yeah, Blackhaller, indeed. Good point, Graham Allen Long. Red Sox. Everybody's with us. I think there's some cognitive dissonance that goes on here with people. If they don't agree with us, they probably wouldn't be watching. But the sad thing is that, again, if you go back and you look at the comments on the YouTube channels about the coverage we've just seen, if you go look at the comments on this show, if you go look at the comments on Reddit about the America's Cup, this is not correct. This is a shit show. I mean, it's a scheisse show. I'm sorry to say it. And
maybe the next drinking word should be AC37s.
Okay, maybe. Okay, we're to the finish line. Thanks, everybody. And we will do this again tomorrow at 0500 Pacific. If you will, please like, follow, and share. This is one of our regular shows. It's 7:30. What is it? 4, 5, 7? 7:37. Taking the airplane. Maybe having the same problems that the 737s are having these days. Do like, share, follow, and whatever. And also, thanks to all of you who do keep us on the air. Our Sailing Illustrated Studio B, and help us pay for Zoom and Skype and for the streaming service and so on, Restream.io. By giving us a few bucks per month or more, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We are deeply appreciative. And tomorrow, scheduled racing, the Kiwis against the Americans. Kiwis are through. The Americans, I think it's must win for them to get through. The Italians against the Swiss. And then the French against the Brits. Have I read all those flags correctly after babbling on for 2.5 hours here? Then that winner-take-all final race, and that is the Kiwis against somebody. And that is tomorrow, Sunday, the 25th of August at 0500 Pacific, 0800 Eastern Daylight Time, 1200 UTC, and 1400 local time in Barcelona, CET. Of course, 0500 PDT here is midnight in Auckland, 2200, 10 p.m. in Sydney. And we hope you can join us then. We'll see you on Sunday. And in the meantime, go sailing or have a barbecue if you're in Scandinavia. It looks like Gordon Smith, and have nice weather in Scandinavia. Sail fast, sail safe, have fun. Ciao for now. I've just got to come back here and say Martin Dack is on, another superb naval architect, marine engineer. I just want to say hi to Martin Dack, who put a comment, an exclamation point at the end. I think he's probably agreeing with us. Graham, thank you. Thanks again to you. Thanks, Morris Stevens. Thanks to all of you in that little coda to recognize Martin Dack. Okay, ciao for now.